Welcome to LTTV Weekly. I don't know the episode. I'd love to have 11. There you go. I'd love to have need a catchphrase for it. The show where, I don't know, Jordy. I don't know. The show where we just say things that have happened all week and some people don't believe us, even if we're trying to just explain that things aren't as bad as they seem. Let's not go too on the nose, hey? Jordy, let's start with the fun stuff. This DOR gig seems quite easy. You've had a quiet week.
Yeah, it's been an interesting start to a new role, Sam. You didn't make any reference to my job title in the intro. But I am obviously much publicised, busy week. Slightly frustrating in that everything seems to get played out in the media these days. But I suppose opportunities like this are here for us to set the record straight where possible.
Yes, so I'm going to do that because Wednesday night, the CEO, Andrea, laid it all out on the table. People always have their perceptions of what they believe, what they don't. That's fine. But I want to ask you a couple of questions if you don't mind, but you are always free to tell me to go away if you choose to as well. So let me start with the simple stuff. 5 players were stood down. Am I right?
Yeah, I think Andrea addressed it on Wednesday. We stood 5 players down. That was a simple thing. We've asked those guys to stay away from training and give them time to reflect on their actions.
So no changes to that situation. Those 5 players remain stood down.
Yeah, 100%. Those guys, contrary to the rest of our squad, and we've got another 55 odd players in our squad, chose to take a line that has led to them being stood down, and as a result, we'll carry on without them into the foreseeable future. So
the real sticking point seems to have been, if you don't mind me naming him from the speculation, Jordan Taufua. What's the situation with Jordan?
Yeah, look, Jordan's in a slightly different position to the guys. He was in New Zealand and he's just come back and he's in quarantine at present. We've communicated with Jordan and he wants to be here, and as such, we've given him an extra week to have that discussion with him face-to-face when he gets out of quarantine, and we'll work with him. He's indicated that he wants to be here next season, and as such, we'll give him the due respect of having that conversation face-to-face.
Another piece of news this morning, Jordy. David Williams comes in on loan from Nottingham.
Yeah, David's come through our academy here and obviously on loan from Nottingham. Outside backs was a place where obviously we needed to strengthen and bolster the ranks, and David's got an unbelievable record. Great player. I actually was very lucky to coach him as a young man here, and he's gone away to Nottingham where he's got an unbelievable strike record in the championship, and he's come back in and been really impressive. We're grateful that Nottingham have allowed him to come back on loan to us, and hopefully we might see him in Tigers colours at the conclusion of this season.
So I just the reason I've thrown it in the midst of the conversation we were having is he is not 24 hours ago it wasn't happening. He's not a replacement for anyone stood down on Wednesday.
No, things don't happen that quickly in rugby. David has been obviously in the offing for a short while, and we have a relationship with Nottingham, and we wanted to get that coverage in. So David has been sort of in the pipeline for quite a while.
I did see someone write on a message board today that the club has so far recruited in the outside backs Harry Potter and David Williams. So who's next?
Who is next? It'll be an entertaining back three all in.
Look, Jordy, I do want to touch on one sour point and obviously a sad point, which is 31 staff this week depart the club because of the redundancy process. I know Andrea went into it, and I'm not trying necessarily to drag out bad news, but this impacts you not only as a senior line manager, but it impacts you personally as well, doesn't it?
100%. Look, this pandemic was brought on us, and we've had to adapt and try and survive. And obviously, a club like Leicester Tigers with a huge fan base, and we're heavily reliant on footfall through the gates. We've been hit very hard by this pandemic. 31 redundancies obviously is case in point. I have a lot of friends who I've known for my entire time, which is 23 years in Leicester, who have lost their jobs, who've been made redundant, people who are desperate and care about this club and are passionate. And sitting in a virtual room and having to break that news to people is some of the toughest things that I've had to do in my life. I think lifting trophies and winning things is easy. Losing games is tough, but obviously breaking news like that impacts on people's livelihoods is heartbreaking. It's a very difficult thing to do. I feel sorry for Andrea, obviously, who's sitting on the top of it. And again, she's come in as a CEO at a really difficult time. But everything we do is about the security of the club and making sure that the club is around in the long term. And all of the decisions that we have made and that have been made from board level down to the very, very bottom are such that we need to worry about putting Leicester Tigers on a stable financial footing and making sure that we can go from strength to strength when we come through this pandemic.
Speaking of taking steps to come through the pandemic, earlier today, I think it was late this afternoon, the club announced, I guess, following the professional game board, that phase 2 training can commence on Monday. To clarify one point before we discuss phase 2, lockdown in Leicester has not impacted training this week, has it?
No, it hasn't. We have been in touch with the Director of Public Health, and he's assured us that the training we're doing at Oval Park is necessary in order for us to play on the 15th of August. We've created a biosecure facility at Oval Park, so nobody comes in, nobody goes out without obviously being tested and making sure that we don't have COVID on site. We clean everything numerous times in the day, and the players take responsibility in small groups for cleaning the equipment. So that was a positive thing. We were slightly concerned on Sunday evening, but we managed to get that resolved by Monday morning, and we had the guys on standby to stay away. However, we got a green light, and we've been here training all week, and thankfully things have gone well. Next Monday we go to stage 2, which is again stepping up of the intensity to training and some more physical training, to couple with that again more guidelines to steer us on the right path. And we also introduced some COVID testing on a Monday morning, so we should have that 24 hours later, and we'll know exactly where we lie and what we can progress to doing in training.
Is that why, given it's a biosecure facility, I've been shoved in this room and no one's allowed in and I'm not allowed out?
Well, mate, I was going to say something horrific then. I was going to say, take a look in the mirror. It's pretty, but I've got a lot of love for your
wow.
for your tiny face. So
Wow.
as soon as you have a haircut, you're going to be allowed out of that box.
Well, I'm moving forward. I'm not having a haircut, but I've got a new chair after Chairgate on Wednesday. So I apologise once again for that, but I'm feeling much better now. Apologies to Dave Wilkes because I broke your chair. Later on this show, Jordy, I have got some clips from an interview with our chairman, Peter Tom. I want to just ask you some of the criticism which I touched on with Andrea surrounding the board. Peter Tom says in his interview how much he's enjoyed seeing you grow through this. Can I ask you a little bit about what guidance or what kind of mentorship you've had from Peter throughout this pandemic?
I think Peter's been exceptional through this whole pandemic. Tough times bring out tough people, and certainly he's shown his true colours in this time. The man he's a work machine. He's up on Zoom calls from early in the morning till late at night. He's always on his phone. He's driving the whole thing forward. So I think like any person can take a huge amount of faith and belief that we've got someone at the very, very top who cares, is hugely passionate, and is driving us to be stable and secure when we come through on the other side. If anyone ever questioned a man's love for a place, I think that would be grossly misguided in that everything he does is about this club surviving and coming out on the other side of this in a stronger position. And as such, I think he's led by example. And for me, it's a great thing to see on a daily basis.
Speaking about leadership, there is a new head coach in the building. I don't know if he's still in the building now, but he's in the building, metaphorically speaking. Steve Borthwick arrived on Wednesday. So everything is fixed. Am I right?
Look, I think Steve is probably one of the best coaches I've ever come across. His eye for detail is truly impressive. I think we don't want to put too much on his shoulders. Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm 100% confident that Steve Borthwick will make Leicester Tigers a stronger team. That will take some time. That doesn't happen overnight. That's not a silver bullet. He's got unbelievable ideas just from the meetings that we've had this week, because we still haven't been on the field coaching, but just from some meetings that we've had and the coaches have had. His attention to detail and the way that he will run the coaching group really is something that I'm excited to work with. And going forward, I'm 100% positive we'll go from strength to strength.
Steve and other coaches, do they return in phase 2 next week?
Yeah, so in stage 2, we can start coaching.
Okay.
Stage 1 was more about social distance training, more about getting a load into the players. Direct coaching is permitted in stage 2, so we will be back on the field doing some more rugby-esque activities, and we'll see really some more of Steve hopefully then.
Does that include scrums, line-outs? What's the situation there?
Yeah, obviously we're trying to build up. We've been giving a start date of the 15th of August, so time is of the essence, but it's important to make sure that the guys are in a good physical shape as well. So we won't do any scrum or line out at the early part of the week. When we get clear COVID test results back, then we'll be in a position that we can start building up some scrum, some more, some close quarter stuff, some more tackling. But that won't be until we get those results and couple that with working in bubbles of 20 players. It places a slightly different feel on training and the way training has to operate, in that, we're working in smaller groups than potentially we usually would. So we'll have to replicate sessions and clean equipment. But the staff have been exceptional so far, and the players have been unbelievable in the way they've applied themselves to the work and not grumbling. Allied Walters has been leading them on a tough 3-week block so far, but we haven't had anyone grumble. We haven't been able to do any recovery. We haven't been able to have showers, but the guys have just got stuck in. So I think we're on a solid footing going forward.
Not having food seems to be the only thing that's pressing some of the big boys up front.
Yeah, it's been challenging. Things that we would normally do, where we bring them in and have food and shower and have massages, ice baths. They're luxuries that we haven't been able to do. But as I said, that's probably been the biggest grumble, that they've had to feed themselves. So guys have had to take an element of responsibility. But it's been great.
Are you at that age where you do the old, this is what it was like for us when we were young, you've got no idea what you've got, or are you still young?
I haven't pulled that line just yet, but I think it's coming now that I've remembered it. You don't know how lucky you have it.
You don't know what it was like for us. You don't know.
The last pandemic that I was in.
The plague, wasn't it?
Yeah, smallpox in 1918, wasn't it?
Look, I am going to let you have a little break here and go and get a cup of tea, because one of those new blokes that has dropped in and has begun training is Matt Scott. And earlier this week, like we did with Dan Cole, I caught up with Matt Scott in what is historically as well, Jordan, the first interview to have not been done by Zoom during this period. So, whoa, sit back, relax. Here is what Matt Scott's had to say about his time, including touching on this week's events.
Mate, strange first few days at the club. That would be a fair way of assessing it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't really have much of a inside scoop of what was going on, so I just really concentrated on settling in, moving down. That took up a lot of my time, building IKEA furniture and unpacking boxes and whatnot. But and then just getting to know all the guys. So there was obviously all this stuff going on behind the scene, but I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise that I could just concentrate on training and just getting to know everyone.
Away from the headline stuff, Leicester Tigers as an option for you. I know when you signed we spoke, but what was it that got you over the line to want to come to Leicester?
I mean, it's really easy, I guess, to sell the club on its history, but what I was really excited about was the future and the vision that the club had. The recruitment they'd done both on and off the field, I felt showed a club with ambition and desire to get back to the top. I at this stage of my career, I don't want to be joining clubs that are kind of don't have that ambition. So you know, I feel so grateful to be at this club. You know, despite all what's going on, I'm really excited. I think there's a great chemistry amongst the squad. What I've seen since I've arrived, between both staff and players. So yeah, I'm delighted to be here.
The Premiership itself, as well as a competition, you got some experience in it, so it's not as if it's a foreign thing for you. But that must have been some of the appeal too.
Yeah, when I left Gloucester, I kind of felt like I had some unfinished business in the Premiership, I guess. Like, I didn't feel ready to leave it. I was really enjoying the competition. I love the intensity week in, week out, and it's just a great league. There's the fans you get, the support, the crowds, the derbies. There's so much else going on apart from the rugby, so I think it's a brilliant league, and as I say, I feel really grateful to be given another opportunity to show what I can do in this league.
You're joining a pretty star-studded backline as well. The opportunity to play with guys like George Ford, Ben Youngs, and then Nemani Nadolo coming in as well.
Yeah, that was obviously a massive draw, and I've seen that already in training. You know, Fordy and Ben, they drive the standards, and you know, I feel like I'm going to become a much better rugby player training with these guys. And you know, my role as well is also to help some of the younger guys. You know, I've had a bit of experience as well, so I'm looking forward to stepping into that role in this team and yeah, sort of finding my feet.
Living in Leicester, obviously you've been here a couple of weeks and the city's been locked down again, but you are on the outskirts, aren't you? You're in Market Harbour.
Yeah, right? I'm slightly further out, so hopefully it doesn't extend to us. But yeah, we're looking forward to a bit more of a relaxation of the lockdown laws when we moved down from Edinburgh. Scotland have been a bit tighter, but then yeah, literally a couple of days after we moved down, Leicester is the only city in the UK that's, you know, having an extra lockdown. But I mean, if it's going to keep everyone safe, I guess that's the main thing. But yeah, hopefully we can still get out and explore, you know, Leicestershire. It seems like a beautiful county. Have
you gravitated towards Jake Kerr, so you've got someone else that you can both understand one another?
I've actually not. I mean, the funny thing is we're all training in little small groups in our units. So I've been training with 9s, 10s, 12s, and you know, forwards and backs, they don't really have much to talk about really. We're on a slightly higher intellectual plane, so I don't know if we'd have much to talk about anyway.
Obviously, your former coach is a Leicester Tigers legend, Cockers. Did you have any conversations with him ahead of the move?
Yeah, I mean, he, you know, I think Jordy sort of phoned him for a reference, and you know, I appreciate he gave me a good reference, obviously. But yeah, no, I already knew of the connection. Obviously, like Cockers is synonymous with Leicester, and that sort of style of play, that his attitude towards rugby. So it's actually good. I've had a couple of years' experience with Cockers. I know what the club demands. I know what the fans demand. First and foremost, that's sort of an abrasive attitude, hard working. So I think it's going to stand me in good stead, having had a couple of years under Cockers.
Steve Borthwick obviously starts on the same day as you. I would imagine your conversations with him haven't been too in-depth as yet because he's not out on the pitch coaching, but what do you know, or what do you think you can expect from him?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to working with him. I've only heard positive things about his coaching style, but also the way he manages players, gets to know them personally, and I've already seen that in the conversations I've had with him. And yeah, like, I'm looking forward to working for him. It's obviously early days just now, but you can already see that he's got a good vision for the club. There's an aura about him as a person, and yeah, I think I've got really good vibes about what he can bring to Tigers.
As a final note, I mean, not to touch on the negative stuff again, but obviously it is a weird period in terms of not knowing maybe when you will play, not knowing necessarily who's in, who's out in some positions. From your perspective, what is it that you're aiming, I guess? What's the target at the moment? What are you aiming for towards the end of this season and starting off that next one?
Oh, look, I mean, yeah, I just want to establish myself within the group. You know, that's, I think, what every rugby player needs to do. First and foremost, earn the respect of their peers and the coaches. And you know, obviously I want to play as much as possible, and I want to be a big part of this team moving forward, be a leader within the team, and you know, hopefully help them with the way I play the game. So and I think moving clubs, you are playing in front of new coaches and new players, and you want to prove yourself. So I think hopefully that's going to get the best out of me. I want to put my best foot forward at all costs, and yeah, I mean, geez, we just want to win games and enjoy ourselves, because you don't get many years playing professional rugby, and it's a privilege to do so. So want to make it enjoyable as well on the way, and the way you do that is by winning games. So that's what we're eventually aiming for. But yeah, for myself, just establish myself in the group.
Educate some forwards along the way.
And educate some forwards that may be more tricky.
Good luck with Coley.
Thanks.
Jordy, before we do move on to all of those new players that have arrived, Matt Scott in particular, international premiership experience, comes with a recommendation of Richard Cockrell, a friend of yours and a former Leicester Tigers coach, player, legend, if you will. Not a former legend. I don't want to start a problem there.
I use that expression about him all the time, former legend. He lost that title when he left, to be quite honest.
You can use that expression. I can't. I've never met him and I'm still quite scared of him. But Matt Scott, what does he add?
It's we were very, very lucky to get Matt across the line. He's a really impressive player, and we're excited again about his arrival in that he can play in midfield, he can play 12, he can play 13. He's also played rugby on the wing for Edinburgh. I had a really in-depth discussion with Richard Cockrell about him, and Richard would have loved to keep him. Fortunately for us, we were managed to secure his services, and he's the poshest speaking Scotsman I know. He's got a beautiful voice, and he's trained incredibly well this week. So I want to see him in Tigers colours as soon as possible. Can't come quick enough, really.
Bigger than I thought he would be. No disrespect to Matt. Yeah,
well, I think he's actually probably lighter than he has been in quite a while, and some of that's due to the running that he's done during lockdown and the training that he's gone through in the past while. But he certainly fast and strong, big body, and I think he'll go down well in Tigers colours.
He's got a Scottish tan though, but we don't need to discuss it too much. The other new blokes in the building, Jordy, Harry Potter. What have you thought of him so far?
Again, we were aware of what Harry's qualities were. A young man who's got a really bright future. Reminds me a lot of some other Australian players that we've had over my time here, and he's he's applied himself brilliantly. Training's been tough for him, but he's got stuck in. And again, now we start phase 2 where we can start playing some rugby and getting our hands on the ball. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Zac Henry, another one who I thought a big second row was walking towards me.
Yeah, again, Zac's been with us now for about a week, and he's been really enjoying the training. He's got a particularly nice left-footed kick, and a beautiful goal kick when I've seen him striking them at the back end of sessions. But yeah, a big body. He's an intelligent footballer. We saw what he did last year in Pro League 2, and he's again another exciting addition for us.
Am I right in thinking Nemani Ndolo, Shalva Mamukashvili and Blake Enova have not yet arrived in Leicester?
Those 3 bodies are not here just yet, but we're hoping that Nemani will be here soon. Shalva and Blake are awaiting visas and should be here imminently. So all 3 guys, we're expecting their arrival along with Rob Taylor pretty soon.
The only other one there, Kyle Brink. He's in the country.
Kyle is in the country. Kyle is coming out of quarantine tomorrow. Kyle is going to be joining us for training, and currently undergoing some rehab and rehab running. But again, Kyle will be joining us in the not
I want to ask
future.
You what?
Shut up.
Oh, I want to ask you about one player, is Facundo Hihena. Now, obviously had some visa issues, then COVID struck, then visa issues were delayed. Can you give anyone an update as to where Facundo is?
Facundo is currently in Buenos Aires. He
Lucky
is
man.
Locked down in Argentina. Went back for some visa issues and got locked in before COVID. Unfortunately, one of the drawbacks of COVID is that visa centres, passport centres, have all closed, so it's very difficult to get anyone in to get a visa or get guys back out of the country. So he's currently training in Argentina via Zoom and making sure that he's keeping himself as fit as possible, but we're not sure when he'll be back.
The only other people I want to discuss in terms of new faces on the block is Cameron Henderson, Dan Kelly, Ollie Chessum. 3 young kids with bright futures.
Very much so, yeah. We've got some really exciting young players. Cam Henderson, obviously, we've watched him play under 20s for Scotland.
He is massive.
He's a very tall young man, and he obviously been training hard. So again, we see a lot of growth and room for development in him. He
can't grow anymore physically, surely.
Well, hopefully he can get wider, just so he can't fit through doors would be helpful. Along with Ollie Chessum again, who's come through our academy and spent last season at Nottingham, really impressing to come back into the environment and apply himself to training. Has been impressive. And Dan Kelly's a guy who again we watched a few years ago and really lit up the under 20 scene in the Six Nations last year, and he'll be an under 20 again this season. So 3 young men who have bright futures.
Before I do give you a preview of what the chairman had to say this week, I want to, I guess, ask you, he touches on the lessons learned through this period. What lessons have been learned from the start of this season that we will recommence in August 15th that people can hopefully look out for in seeing maybe a different kind of Tigers?
Are you referring to lessons learned from pandemic?
No, on the pitch, pre-pandemic.
Look, this season with a World Cup year was always going to be challenging for us. We knew that World Cup seasons have always been difficult in my experience from being here from 99, 2003, 2007, 2011. And when we, at the top end of the season, had 8 to 11 players away, our first 4 games were challenging, but I thought young men did a very good job when we came away with 1 win from 4. We had some solid performances at home. I think Exeter at home at Christmas was a loss, but one where we showed some real grit and determination. And the big thing for me was a real buy-in from the fans and the supporters that I hadn't heard in a couple of seasons beforehand. And the vociferousness of the cheering was a really inspiring, spine-tingling at that game. We went on, we had some big wins on the back end and into the new year against Bristol, who were a top side at home, and just before lockdown we had a very narrow defeat at Bath and a tough one at Saracens. So I felt that form, particularly at home, was improving over the course of the season. But I think overall we appreciated that we weren't good enough and we needed to make changes, and we always had that in mind. And I think the addition of some really strong coaches to the coaching room will help lead that from the top. Obviously now we're in a position where we're going to have to keep adding to the squad to keep growing and developing. But some young men have impressed over the course of the season, and that's something that we need to do from Leicester Tigers' point of view. We need to keep cultivating and growing our academy graduates and keep them pushing through to represent their county.
The three-peat academy.
The three-peat academy. Again, I think a lot of credit goes to all of the guys involved in that, including Jed Glynn, David Wilkes, taking a real lead on that, David Melee and Matt Smith and all of the coaches that have been involved in that over the last 3 seasons. To achieve that is hugely impressive, and it shows what hard work these guys put in. And due to COVID, some of those guys that I have just mentioned have lost their positions, and that's heartbreaking for a club, but they leave behind an unbelievable legacy of success, and we need to continue that.
Well, it's a nice one to touch on, because here, ahead of the full interview with the chairman, which touches on the last couple of months, some space in between the last time we spoke to him, he even talks about you, Jordan. Here is a preview of what he had to say when I spoke to him, which will be on LTTV tomorrow, Saturday, July 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. So here's a preview of what Chairman Peter Tom had to say when I spoke to him earlier this week. Obviously, one thing in sport that comes up quite a lot, and it's not exclusive to Leicester Tigers, is that you do have boards of directors and you have CEOs, and they are a business and they are, as you say, PLCs. But if I can ask you, without maybe crossing a line, the rugby side of Leicester Tigers, That is very much Geordan Murphy and Steve Borthwick's now, isn't it? It's hands off from a board and a executive perspective.
No, absolutely. And, you know, I think that for me as well, partly what gives me confidence is that we made the changes to the academy 3 or 4 years ago. And, you know, Jed Glynn, who's now moved on, and we owe him a huge debt of gratitude in terms of the changes that were made. And you know, to win the under-18 competition 3 years in a row, and to see the number of in the squad for the end of the 19-20 season, the 2021 season going forward, a huge number of. So I think the changes that we made there, and the changes that we've made within the organisation, and you know, Jordy will be director of rugby, Steve will be in charge of on the pitch, and it'll be up to them to get on with it.
You mentioned the academy. There's no question now that those guys, especially when the recommencement of 1920 begins, as you say, hopefully in August, fingers crossed, but there's no question that there is probably going to be some more weight on the shoulders of those young kids. It's probably fast-tracked, I guess, their development a little bit. Are you confident that not only Jed, and as you say, he's owed a debt of gratitude, but the work of Dave Wilkes, in particular, Matt Smith, and even Jamie Taylor-Pryor, these are young men you're proud to see coming through?
Oh, no, very, very proud. And I think for them, you know, and although as we joked on a previous LTTV, you know, for me, one of the most amazing moments in my life, you know, was the first time you put a Tigers first team shirt on and run out. And I think, you know, these guys will have just the same thing. And I think the most important element that I know that Steve, you know, Jordy and everybody else will be wanting to emphasise to the squad, and was partly in, you know, part of the process that we went through over the past few weeks, is, you know, all they want is people who want to wear the Tigers shirt.
For Leicester Tigers fans in particular, is there anything you want to say now that this new look and new era is officially beginning?
No, I want to be able to, you know, to get Tigers back to the top. That's what we have to do. You know, everything that we're doing in terms of Steve coming in, Aled, you know, rather than everybody else, is all part of getting back to the top again. And you know, I'm looking forward to some of the people who, quite correctly, in that way you run out in front of the breeding stand, who are usually pretty critical, you know, being able to put my arm around them and say, you know, we're back where we should be.
So, Jordy, there he is. Obviously, we spoke about him a little bit earlier, but one of the big things he's had to say, and one of the big things that a chairman, look, to call a spade, a chairman is always going to say, let's not pretend, let's be real. But the pieces of the puzzle seem to now be in place. We are looking forward. We are moving forward. That's the tone. That's the rhetoric coming out of Oval Park, Welford Road, and, you know, figuratively speaking, because Welford Road is closed, do not attend anything. Do you feel that even after only a couple of days of July 1 ticking over?
Yeah, look, it's a new look, a new feel. We've had Steve and Aled arrive and sort of already put their stamp on things. I've moved positions, and it's obviously freed up a little bit of my time, which has been needed. But we needed to draw a line in the sand. We need to move forward. This has been an incredibly difficult time. Pandemics have been tough in my experience. But as Peter said, you know, now we go forward. We've gone through our redundancy process, and we've made the adjustments that we need to make on the playing field. Everything from here on in is about getting Leicester Tigers back to the top of the table.
How much of an onus, with what might be a case where we might not have fans in the stadium, how much of an onus is it on supporters now to hopefully see that it's a chance to look forward? I know recent events and recent weeks will play on their minds, but how much do you need to call on them?
Sammy, we have the best supporters in the country, if not the world. 60% of our supporters have left their money with the club. That is huge. In times where people are losing their jobs, people are struggling for money, people are enduring wage reductions, our fans have stood up and said, we are Leicester Tigers. And that's what we're about. And that's what I felt over the course of the last year. I felt that growing back. Season ticket numbers were down slightly, but the passion that we see on a weekly basis from our fans, I just, you know, it's inspiring, and it's why we just keep getting up and keep coming back to work, because we want to do those people proud. I think we're very, very lucky with the supporters we have. They're behind us all of the way and behind the players all of the way. And they, I'm sure when we get back to Welford Road, whether that's in front of limited numbers, no numbers, or full houses, that our true fans will be behind us and with us all the way.
When you read things, or I send you things to read, because that's what I do. You shouldn't be reading things necessarily, and I'm sure you've got much more important things to go on, where they say that they're not getting the full story, or things aren't transparent, or things aren't honest. I just want to point out that this week alone, since Wednesday, they will have had the opportunity by Sunday to hear from the CEO, the chairman, the director of rugby, and let me preview, which we'll see in a second, the new head coach, Steve Borthwick. What do you feel?
Look, we're trying to be as transparent as possible. The fact is that a lot of things have been played out in the media, and that hasn't come from Leicester Tigers' side of it, and we're not entirely sure where that's come from, but a lot of stuff has been written in the media, and as we know over the course of the year, not all of that is true. As a result of that, it is a difficult position that it puts us in. You know, guys have contracts, and people are individuals, and you know, we don't want to talk about monetary values of players. You know, that's something that you don't ever want to go down the route of. So I think we've tried to be as transparent as possible, but it's a difficult one, you know, as in we've had, you know, this much publicized dispute with 5 of our players. I believe, or I've been led to believe, and I've been told that 2 of those guys have already agreed deals in France. So it is what it is. You know, I think we can only comment so much, and as you know, we sort of said earlier in the interview, we need to just put a line through it and let's move forward. Well,
in terms of moving forward, even though you've said what you've just said, and now I'm scrambling to think of a question, I will let that sleeping dog lie for now, because, as you say, you believe, you've heard rumours of rumours. This is what, ahead of Sunday night's first conversation with our new head coach. So, again, without being rude, in a week that we did hear from the CEO, chairman and director of rugby, I would suggest maybe the most anticipated chat might be the new head coach. So no offence to yourself, Andrea, or Peter there. But here is what Steve had to say when I asked him about not only how important our fans are, but actually, what about the people that genuinely just hate Leicester Tigers? What do you think about that?
I think there's lots of people outside the club who enjoy Leicester Tigers being down right now. What matters to me is this club, and when I say this club, I mean the players, I mean the board, I mean our supporters, and I mean the community in which our club is in Leicestershire. And that's what I think is important. So we'll go about our work with great endeavour. We'll give our all to improving this team, ensure that our supporters are proud of it, and ensure that our community is proud of our team. And outside of that, I don't really give much thought to what they think.
Jordy, is that the Steve Borthwick you were talking about?
That's the man. That's exactly what we hear in meetings, and that's what we like about him.
Well, I think the chairman described him as a Prince of Darkness, which is one heck of a nickname, him and Rod Taylor. So we'll let Rod Taylor go for now and see if anyone picks up on what I'm saying this weekend. They'll see.
I can't wait till Rod gets in.
I can't wait till Rod gets in. Fans look forward to that. It's not a new signing, don't worry. But, Jordy, it would be very criminal of me not to ask you. Signings, I've asked Andrea, I've asked Peter, I even tried to ask Steve today and he gave me nothing. I've heard there are more than 15 renewals being done, but Jan's office is locked.
That is exactly the truth, Sam. And early next week, we are going to announce those. So I'm going to give you absolutely nothing right now, but just tell you that next week we're going to announce 15 bodies.
That's it? Really?
That's it, mate.
Great. We can look forward to a weekend of people saying who it is. Jordan, thank you very much. For those watching, look forward to a full chat with Peter Tom tomorrow and a full chat with the new head coach, Steve Borthwick, on Sunday. Good night.